I always forget. Perfect. So hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Lausch. I'm the virtual program coordinator here at Gilda's Toronto. And thank you and welcome to today's nutrition showcase hosted by the wonderful Chef Amy Symington. Before we get rolling with that, I'm just going to go through a little bit of housekeeping with you guys. So if you look at the bottom bar of your Zoom screen, there are two buttons that I need you to know about. The first button is the Q&A box. At any point throughout the presentation, if you have any questions that you'd like to direct to the wonderful Amy, please put them in the Q&A box. It's got two cute little bubbles. So if you want Amy to see it, put it in there. There will be time throughout the presentations where I might pull out some questions, but there will also be designated time at the end of the presentation for answering any questions. So if you throw a question in, Amy doesn't answer it right away, don't sweat it, it'll be answered at the end of the presentation. Second button that I need you to know about is the chat box, so just a little bit to the right, and that's how you'll get in contact with me if you have any questions, comments, concerns, tech issues. I will be your tech/social support for the next hour. So chat box for me, Q&A box for Amy throughout. This is a webinar and it is being recorded, so you will be getting the recording as well as wonderful handouts and notes provided by Chef Amy, so no need to take any crazy notes as you're listening to us. Because it is a webinar though, we can't see you, we can't hear you, so really the Q&A and the chat box is the only way that we can communicate with each other. Now, what we're really here for, Amy Symington. So Amy Symington is a nutrition professor, researcher, and plant-based chef at George Brown College in Toronto, Canada, and is a current PhD student at the University of Toronto, and has 25 years of experience in the food industry, including in restaurants, catering, events large and small, in community kitchens, and at various colleges. She runs the culinary nutrition programming at Gilda's Club Greater Toronto, a not-for-profit organization that you're all here at today, and is active in the Toronto Vegetarian Association. Volunteer focusing on all things food and nutrition. She volunteers with the Toronto Veg Food Bank as a chef and nutrition consultant and does recipe development and food writing for various publications in Toronto and worldwide. Amy believes in the evidence-based health and environmental benefits of plant-based diets and is the recent author of the Long Table Cookbook, Plant-Based Recipes for Optimal Health, which I'll be popping in the chat box shortly. And off to you, Amy. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Gloria. It's always nice to hear all the things and have someone introduce me. So I really, really appreciate it. And thanks to you so much for all of your hard work that you do for Gilda's as well. We're so lucky to have you. Okay, thanks for joining. Thanks to the newcomers and to our tried and true Gilda's members as well. I look forward to the day that we can all get together again. But this is great for now too. So today's topic, I'm going to be talking a little bit about eating for everyday energy. So kind of fighting fatigue with food and lifestyle. So as Gloria mentioned, you'll be getting the handout at the very end. All the recipes I'm making today come from the cookbook, which you can see in the background there, the Long Table Cookbook, Plant-Based Recipes for Optimal Health. And I don't feel bad about promoting it because all of my author proceeds go to Gilda's Club to support their social, emotional, and nutritional programming. So you'll be getting the recipes as well in the handout, so don't worry about that. Let's just dive right in. Okay, so today, talking a little bit about fatigue, which is a very, very, very common side effect for cancer and cancer if you've been diagnosed with cancer and if you're going through any sort of cancer treatment. So oftentimes it makes us feel leaves us feeling lethargic, sluggish. And so today I'm just going to talk a little bit about the causes, the side effects, things that we can consume to put a little bit of pep in our step, and then also the things we want to maybe minimize consuming because they may not be doing us any service. And then after that, I'll practically apply all that information in recipe format. So let's buckle in. Here we go. Okay, so handout or the information first. So causes of fatigue. So cancer treatment in general, in particular, can really increase your fatigue, which can be super frustrating. And so, as I said, I'll give you some tips and tricks. But stress can be another cause of fatigue. Anemia, which is something that if you are feeling tired because of cancer treatment, totally normal. But it is something to maybe, address with your healthcare team, just because it could also have to do with anemia, which is something that is treatable. And treating that will actually put you in a better position to move forward with your treatment, right? Lack of B vitamins, which is another one as well. We'll talk about what to consume for that. Obviously, B rich foods, and then medication is another one as well. And then a sedentary lifestyle. So just meaning, lack of physical activity, lack of movement, which we'll talk about. Okay, and then side effects of fatigue. So even though you may be very tired, sometimes you're still not able to sleep. And so that can be super frustrating. And so that's one thing we'll talk a little bit about, okay? And then loss of appetite is another one as well, which on top of cancer treatment, already there are side effects, particularly nausea and all that stuff that can affect how you eat. So loss of appetite is another one too when you're overtired sometimes. Dehydration is another big one, which we'll talk about. Mental fuzziness, which is something, it's all kind of interrelated. If you're, not sleeping well, you're tired, you're not necessarily thinking or speaking clearly. Coordination is off, which is not good for many reasons, but one in particular, you may be more accident prone. And then irritability, which is something, we all know too well. If you're overtired, you're obviously not going to be, Little Miss Sunshine. You may be more irritable, and that's totally understandable. Okay, so those are the side effects of fatigue, and then foods that we want to focus on to increase our energy levels. And so you heard Gloria talk a lot about my background and things, and I do focus on plant-based foods as much as possible, and that's just because that's where the research and the evidence resides. So if we're focusing on more plant-based foods, it's just been shown in terms of dietary patterns that it reduces your risk of chronic disease, including cancer, and it's also great for chronic disease management, including cancer. And I should mention too, in addition to the book, which has tons of information on chronic disease prevention in general, but cancer also, if you also go to our website on Gilda's Club, toronto.org, you'll see under resources, and there is a community guide to cancer nutrition, and that's something that myself and some experts have compiled that talks about foods to consume for cancer prevention during treatment and to prevent recurrence. So that's free, that's online, that's downloadable on Gilda's website. So definitely check that out, and it goes over a lot of the stuff I'm covering today, but a lot of the specific foods for specific types of cancer, and then for all of the side effects that sometimes come with treatment. Those are up there too. And I should also mention on the website there's also some fun stop animation videos of different recipes that you can consume. There's also previous nutrition showcases that have been recorded that are posted that maybe you'll see or you'll think like, oh, I really need to deal with my nausea, or there's or constipation or whatever it may be. There are some resources available on Gilda's from past showcases that we've done. Okay, so all that's to say is the information I'm about to tell you is in the handout that you'll be getting, but it's also found on the website. And if you want more information, go to the website and download that free community guide to cancer nutrition. Okay, so everyday foods to fuel your body and increase your energy levels. So foods rich in iron. So that was another, we just talked about anemia. So foods rich in iron, we're talking the beans and the greens. So things like, leafy greens, obviously, herbs fit under this category. Lentils, tofu, tempeh, nuts, seeds, whole grains, dried fruit are all good sources of iron. And then of course, if you're consuming an iron-rich diet, you're wanting to couple it with a vitamin C rich food. So whatever that looks like to you, citrus fruits, strawberries, mangoes, red pepper, broccoli is also high in vitamin C. So there's lots of foods that are high in vitamin C. However, do note that vitamin C is very easily damaged. So if you're cooking it at a high heat, there's less vitamin C present. Foods that are rich in B vitamins, so whole grains, fruits, nuts, herbs. Nutritional yeast is another one as well. So the B vitamins are kind of synonymously correlated to, or, when you talk about B vitamins, we talk about energy, and they do provide energy, or they help with fatigue. So making sure you're eating a wide variety of different foods that are rich in B vitamins, like the one that I just mentioned, or the ones that I just mentioned. Foods that are rich in electrolytes. So we talked about dehydration, so making sure you're drinking enough water. And you can do that however you want. You can make it fun and fancy and throw in citrus fruit or strawberries or cucumbers or whatever you like, or just straight up water. But also make sure that in addition to sufficient water, that you are getting sufficient electrolytes, as that will help with keeping you hydrated. So when we talk about electrolytes, we're talking about calcium, potassium, chloride, magnesium, and yes, sodium. Of course, sodium isn't necessarily something that we have to be concerned about. We do tend to get enough sodium in our diet. However, with that said, if you are like very nauseous and throwing up all the time, making sure that you are getting, like a little pinch of salt, maybe in like a homemade Gatorade or actual Gatorade, or some sort of electrolyte beverage that is going to provide that, those electrolytes that you require, adding a little pinch. And I always say I have my own recipe for a homemade Gatorade that's just pennies a glass, and it's just water, a big squeeze of citrus fruit, a little bit of maple syrup, and a big pinch of salt. And Bob's your uncle in there, and that'll help to replenish your electrolytes. Coconut water is another good a good source of electrolytes, and so that you could use that as well. But just listing off some foods here that are rich in various electrolytes: chia seeds, coconut water, as I mentioned, bananas, smoothies. If you're making smoothies, which I'm going to show you one kind of today that's very rich in electrolytes, but that's a good one too. And then, as I mentioned, the homemade sports drinks. Foods that are rich in, so moving on from the foods to fuel your body, increase energy, we'll move to the foods that you maybe want to avoid or not consume as often. So foods that are rich in high simple carbohydrates, so white processed sugar, white bread, things that will spike your blood sugar levels and make them drop, are ones that we want to kind of avoid. Highly caffeinated drinks or foods, so things that are really high in caffeine. I mean, caffeine's fine in small amounts. If you're having a cup of coffee, no big deal. But if you're having 6 cups, that's going to affect many things, including being hydrated. But it's also going to increase your gut motility, which will get things moving, which is okay, but you may not be able to absorb all of the nutrients that we want. And particularly when we're going through cancer treatment, it's really important to try and make every mouthful matter, so that you can absorb all of those nutrients that you need. And that would include also energy drinks and things like that. We don't want to drink, they're good for short term. They'll work for that hour or two. But then oftentimes they leave you feeling anxious, dehydrated, and with less energy. So we want to get our energy sources from good whole foods as much as possible. Alcohol is another one as well we want to avoid or consume in minimal amounts. It dehydrates you, obviously, and alcohol is something that's been correlated to many different cancers. So again, if you're consuming it in moderation, that's preferred. But if you don't drink, don't start drinking. It's not something that's going to necessarily benefit you. And that includes red wine. I know that's a big topic. It's like, oh, but red wine has antioxidants. Yes, but so do many other foods as well. So you can, eat some red grapes, or, eat any sort of dark, rich berries that contain polyphenols. Okay, and then salty foods. So again, trying to minimize the overly processed foods as much as possible for a variety of reasons, but one in particular because they're high in sodium, which can dehydrate our body, which creates an imbalance in electrolytes. And then, of course, other things that you may want to consider that will be helpful to combating fatigue. Obviously, trying to get good, deep sleeps as much as you possibly can. So uninterrupted, getting that REM, making sure maybe you're shutting your screens off an hour before. So that light does keep your body kind of stimulated, and it's harder to fall asleep. So trying to do that. Meditation will help. Listening to nice music is good. Sometimes there's guided sleep meditations that are nice out there that you could check out. Yeah, so there's lots of different things you can do, but just trying to get that good deep sleep as much as possible. Exercising regularly, this is the biggest secret, in my opinion, in terms of culinary cancer care and nutrition. Just getting enough exercise will actually provide you with so much energy, and that doesn't mean you have to start, training for a half marathon or anything like that, or go to the actual gym and lift weights. It just means moving your body in some sort of joyful way, which can be meditative in and of itself. But just getting moving, that's gonna significantly, and there's so many studies out there that talk about physical activity during cancer and cancer treatment, and there's provides energy, but then it also actually helps to prevent reoccurrence as well. So just there's a little bit in the guide about physical activity during cancer, so check that out. But I can't stress that enough. So do whatever you like to do, chair yoga, hula hooping, whatever gets you moving, do that, okay? And then eating, plant-based foods as much as possible, specifically focusing on leafy greens, orange vegetables, red vegetables, and cruciferous vegetables as much as you can. Maybe trying to get one of each of those in every single day. And I'm gonna be using cauliflower today, which is one of my favorites. Yeah, it helps to increase your vitamin and mineral intake, but it also helps to increase your antioxidant intake as well. Here's a big one: do not skip meals, because that will, it's not keeping your blood sugar levels even. They're dropping and spiking, especially if you've, really, really hungry, and then you're eating maybe something that's high in carbohydrates, because that's what you often crave when you're, when you're super hungry, and then that spikes your blood sugar and then you drop again. We really, the idea is that we want to keep those blood sugar levels even. And then, of course, planning ahead is always a great idea. So trying to bring healthy snacks with you wherever you go, granola bars. There's a good chia pudding in the cookbook that you can make ahead of time and then just throw it in your bag. You can do that with smoothies, nuts, trail mix, something, fruit, portable fruit is always good to have on hand. So making sure that you have lots of snacks with you. And that's obviously going to keep, again, your blood sugar levels even, and that's going to give you enough energy. Okay, so in terms of recipes for today, I'm going to be doing a variation of my lemon mint ginger slushy. It's going to be, so if you go to the cookbook, you'll get the recipe for the lemon mint and ginger slushy, but I'm going to do a variation on it to actually increase the energy dense ingredients in it. So I'm going to be adding a few things to it that will help give you even more energy. And then I'm going to do one of my absolute favorite dishes, which is the easiest one, and it's also impressive. It's also really impressive, and it's very easy to do. So it's the roasted cauliflower with tahini dressing with cilantro and pomegranate seeds. That's also in the book, but it's in the book as the Moroccan chickpea power bowl. I'm just literally taking the cauliflower out, and then we're putting it on a platter. And then last but not least, one of my absolute favorites, and it's almost strawberry season, so I'm going to show you this one, spicy chocolate covered strawberries. So you're in for a treat. So with that said, Gloria, I'll get you to turn over to my my kitchen cam, and then we'll get started. Voila! Here it is. Okay, great. So the roasted cauliflower with tahini dressing and cilantro. So I've got one head. It's about a medium-sized head of cauliflower, and I've just put it into florets. You can see that that's already done, about that size. Okay, and all we do for this is we're going to add some olive oil. And I'm using olive oil. You could use whatever oil you happen to use or you like to use. Feel free to use that. It doesn't have to be olive oil. Grapeseed oil is good. Sesame oil would be really good on this as well, because we're using a tahini dressing. So I've got the oil in there. That was about a tablespoon. Next, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt, so about a quarter of a teaspoon. Again, you're going to be getting the recipes. And then I've got some paprika, about a teaspoon and a half of paprika. This one's actually smoked. The recipe just calls for regular, but I'm feeling frisky today. So I'm gonna add the smoked paprika. Feel free to use just regular paprika though. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of cayenne. So again, you can omit this if you're not into spicy. But that's it. And then we're just going to stir it up. Everything's kind of coated. Oh, I should also mention too, these guys, which are kind of like the stems of the cauliflower, I save them and I use them and I roast them. They are delicious. That is considered a leafy green, and it's also a cruciferous vegetable, just like kale. Kale is kind of a bam bam. You get, more bang for your buck. You're hitting two categories of vegetables there. So I save those and I roast them as well. We're just going to stir these up, and then I'm going to put them on this baking sheet lined with parchment, and then pop them in the oven. And so the oven has been preheated at 425, and then we'll put that in there for about 20-25 minutes until they're kind of golden brown. We want to make sure that they're well cooked. So if you do smaller florets, it's going to cook faster. So if you do smaller florets, just be cognizant of that and just kind of keep an eye on it. You're welcome to do smaller florets if you want it to cook faster. That's totally fine. I want to make sure this is nice and coated. Okay, perfect. And you can see I saved a lot of the greens. And so, cruciferous vegetables, as I said, particularly for cancer care, they're great ones to include. So, cauliflower, broccoli, kale, arugula, cabbage, all the stinky vegetables get that. Yeah, okay. See that? Nicely coated. I'll put that into the oven. Timer here. So bam, get rid of that. Okay. Next, we're going to make the dressing, which is super easy, but also very impressive. Okay. So I have about a quarter cup and about 2 tablespoons of water. So I'm just doing it in this kind of handy dandy little container. Maybe you've seen these before. You can do this in a blender too. I'm going to use my hand immersion blender to make this dressing, but if you don't have one of those, a blender will work just fine. Okay. And then we're going to put in 6 figs, 6 dried figs. You could use fresh. That would be delicious. And I'm just going to make sure to take the little tops off there because these are not digestible and they can hurt your tummy. Just take those off. Figs are so nutrient dense. Great source of iron, calcium, many other nutrients as well, but fiber, of course, is another one too. But these and dates, sometimes when I'm running, if I'm doing any sort of super long distance, like say half marathon or something like that, which I haven't done in years, by the way, these are great to use in replacement of, those energy packets. So instead of popping, those energy gummies or whatever, you can use dates or figs. I'm putting those in the water. And they're just so yummy. And my kids love these. And I know some people particularly like to check to make sure, the insides are good. Doesn't that look beautiful? Holy moly. Yum. These are a great on-the-go snack too that give you energy. Couple these with some, raw almonds or something, nuts, whatever you like. And then I'm going to add a quarter cup of olive oil. This is extra virgin. Again, whatever you happen to have. Because it's the dressing, I suggest getting one that tastes nice or that's at least neutral. And then the tahini. So you notice how I kept my tahini kind of upside down, and that makes it much easier to get the tahini out, and you're not having to awkwardly stir all the oil in and getting it everywhere all over the jar. If you store it upside down, that helps with that problem. Okay, and I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup of tahini. Yum. And tahini also rich in calcium, which is, one of the electrolytes, but also important for many things, including bone health. One thing I wanted to mention too, if you are anemic and you're having to watch your iron levels, making sure that you're not consuming calcium supplements or really high calcium rich foods at the same time that you're, say, taking your iron supplement. The calcium will displace the iron. So just be cognizant of that. And I'm sure your healthcare team will be telling you that if you do have issues with iron. Okay, so that's the tahini. And then lemon. So citrus, as I said, really great source of vitamin C. Vitamins for many things, including the prevention of scurvy, but also it's an antioxidant. So it combats free radicals, reducing inflammation in the body, which reduces your risk of chronic disease and also reoccurrence. Okay, so I've got my lemon here, which you saw me roll. That's to get the juices flowing. And oftentimes I will take my microplane and I'll save the zest. In this case, I'm just going to put it right into the dressing. But I save the zest because the oils in the citrus fruit have also been shown to be a good component of an anti-cancer diet. The research is still preliminary, but why not? It also adds flavor. But if you're not going to use it right away, I recommend zesting it, putting it in a little reusable container and tossing it in the fridge. You can use it in things like soup, stews, chilies, muffins, sauces to give an oomph of flavor without added fat, salt, or unhealthy fat, because we like fat, just not the really, unhealthy kinds. And so, yeah, and then also salt, unhealthy fat, and unnecessary sugars. Okay, and I'm going to put the lemon juice in here. You could use a reamer. This one doesn't have too many seeds, so I'm just squeezing it upside down. It's really juicy though, you can see. Great. So you can already tell that this dressing, super energy dense, right? And so you could put this on, obviously what we're making today, but it could go on any salads. You could, use it as a spread, as a dip. Very flavorful. And you could add a pinch of salt if you like. I'm going to add a little bit of sea salt. Regular salt is fine too. Sometimes it's recommended, especially if you're not someone who eats seafood, to use iodized salt. That's something else that's really important. Making sure you're getting enough iodine in your diet. So seaweed, seafood. And if not, use iodized salt. That works. And a little goes a long way. Okay. Clear this off, and now I'm going to zhuzh it up. So I've got my hand immersion blender here. Ta-da! This one's great. I think it was like $20, $25. It's just a KitchenAid. Again, if you have a blender, you can use that. Okay, so talk amongst yourselves for a minute. I'm going to zhuzh this up, and maybe we'll check out the chat to see if there's any questions while I'm blending.
Feel free, just a reminder for anyone who came in late, if you've got any questions, pop them into the Q&A that you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Now's a great time to type them out. And I will also take this time to plug tonight's comedy show. We have a Nevermind Comedy. If anybody is interested, I'll pop the link in the chat box as well. So that's at 6 p.m. tonight.
Who is it tonight? Do you know?
I do, but I can't remember right now.
I love all the comedians, but
Tonight's is Judy Croon.
nice. Oh, so good. Do that. You should definitely do that. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit of water just to thin it out a little bit. And I'm just going to zhuzh up some more. All right, finito.
We do
yes. Oh, go ahead. Do you have a
yes,
question?
We've got one question here. Could you just repeat how many dates could you substitute if you don't have figs?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so if they're medjool dates, like the big fat ones, still just use 6. But if they're the smaller ones, I would do maybe 8 to 10. Yeah, that's a great, and dates would be such a great alternative for sure. Yep. I will say, depending on the size of them, you may, like I just did, may need to add a little bit of water. So just try it out and then kind of play with the consistency, and you want it to be kind of pourable, or at least like a thicker dressing. Still, not thick like a nut butter. You want it to be able to be put onto the cauliflower and or dressing. Okay, awesome. So that's that. I'm going to put that aside because the cauliflower is not quite ready yet. I can smell it. I wish you could too. It's so nice. Okay. One day you just have to make it at home. You have to make it at home. And then tell me about it. Either through Gilda's, or you're welcome to follow me on any of the social medias. That's one part I miss, is the direct interaction with the members. One day we'll get there. Okay, so next up, while we're still waiting for the cauliflower to roast, I'm gonna do the pomegranate. So usually I just have these already done, but I thought it would be fun to show you how to get rid of some of or how to get the seeds out of the pomegranate. So I have already, you can see some of the juices come out. I have already patted this with a wooden spoon, but I wanted to show you the technique in case you've never done it before. Okay, so there's many different ways to do this. This is just one method, and I'm sure if you are pomegranate lovers, you have your own techniques, but this is mine. Okay, so I've got a wooden spoon, and then I just take my aggression out. Very therapeutic. And this gets the seeds kind of loose. And then what we're going to do is cut it in half. It's just spewing. That's a good one too. It's ready to go. Sometimes you can find you get a pomegranate and it's like avocado almost. You don't know what you're going to get out of it, right? So there we go. Okay. And then you can cut it into sections too. That's helpful. And you could do this part in water if you wanted to. That's another technique that people often do. But I just use my good old-fashioned fingers. Just try and get gently without breaking them. So pomegranates, so good for you in so many different ways. Very high water content, very high fat content. Also very rich in polyphenols, so high in antioxidants. So many good benefits to pomegranate seeds. Pomegranate juice is also nice too. I generally try to encourage eating the food before, drinking the juice, so like orange juice and things like that. But whatever, especially if you're in need of extra calories, adding things like juices to smoothies in small amounts is great.
While you're attacking that guy there, We do
Yeah.
have a question asking about the sugar content of dates. Don't they have a lot?
Yeah, they do, for sure. And I should say two things, and you can check out there's another recording that we've done about often common cancer myths, and sugar is one of them. You know, we see all the time, or we hear all the time, that sugar feeds cancer, and so people are oftentimes super scared of consuming their favorite treat or even fruit. And I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't be afraid. You should not be afraid of your food, your food in general, but your treats or fruit in particular. So yes, so dates do have high levels of sugar, but they also have high levels of fiber. And if you're pairing them with a protein, that's going to again give you that even energy. It's not going to spike your blood sugar levels as much as, say, if you had, just a big old spoonful of white sugar, right? That's not to say that you shouldn't have white sugar either. I'm definitely not saying that. But if we're talking about keeping our blood sugar levels even Steven, which is super important just in chronic disease prevention and management in general, then yeah, coupling it with the protein is super nice. So eating dates with almonds, that's why I mentioned eating the figs with, roasted almonds or whatever nut or seed you like, do that for sure. But yeah, they are higher in sugar, but you're only eating a small amount of them, right? Great question though, and check out the other showcases, especially the one where I talk about the cancer food myths. I talk about other good ones too. Okay, I'm only going to do a few. That we'd only need a few for our particular purposes. The gist of it. This is a great one to delegate to. I know it's messy, but delegate to kids or family members if they're like, how can I help? Here, do this. Take this pomegranate apart for me. Look how beautiful, like so beautiful, right? Yum. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Obviously, I'm going to say that later.
We've got a yummy snack suggestion in the group in the big chat over here. Some nut butter in between a split open date covered in really dark chocolate.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that sounds like heaven in my mouth. I love that. I'm seeing my cutting board. That's amazing. That's amazing. And super easy to make, especially if you're just, maybe using your favorite chocolate and just melting it. I'm going to show you how to make a chocolate sauce today, though, so you could use this one as well. But that sounds incredible. I love that. Let me just flip my board over here. Okay, so we've got the pomegranates and we've got the dressing for later. This may thicken as it sits too, so I may need to add a little bit more water to it, but we'll see. So we'll leave that aside for now, and we're going to move on to the next one while this guy still roasts. So I got about 5 minutes left. Okay, so I mentioned again, we're talking about energy, providing ingredients and foods, and so smoothies are always a great one, particularly if you're not feeling like eating a lot. And so this one is one of my favorites. I did a variation of this one at the last, it wasn't a nutrition showcase, it was the treading above water. But I did this, but I'm taking that and putting a twist on it and adding energy rich foods to it. So I'll introduce you to the ingredients. So we have soy milk. You can use whatever milk you prefer. Soy milk I use because it's high in protein. It has about 8 grams per cup, which is the highest, unless we're talking about pea protein milks, which aren't super common yet, but the highest amount of protein, complete protein, in terms of the plant-based milks. And again, I usually get the soy question, should I be consuming soy? And I can put your mind at total ease. Yes, soy is acceptable to consume during cancer. Not only is it acceptable, in some cases it's beneficial. So check out the guide. The Community Guide to Cancer Nutrition goes into more detail about soy, but also the showcase that we did, again talking about cancer myths, and that's a big one. But yes, enjoy your soy. Okay, and then I've got ice, lemon, banana. rich in potassium, also good source of energy, also contains fiber. Ginger, just for those antioxidants, that gingerol that's present, but also especially if you're feeling nauseous, this is a good thing to add as well. And then I'm adding some hemp seeds, which are a complete protein. They're also high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are good for so many different things, but cancer prevention and management in particular. So those are great to add in, sprinkle on things, just get them into you. And they're also Canadian made, right? So you're supporting, our Canadian farmers. Okay, and then I've got mint, of course. And mint is classified as a leafy green. And so fragrant and adds so much flavor. Yeah, I just love mint. Mint is coming up right now. I can see some last year from my garden. And it's so robust. It holds up really well, so it stays a long time in the best way to store them in the fridge, wash them, roll them in a towel, toss them in the fridge, or put them in a towel, but then also in a Ziploc bag if you don't want to get any sort of water in your refrigerator. Okay. Blender. So you're just putting all the ingredients into a blender. So we'll put in the soy milk. I've got about a cup and a half. The recipe that you'll get is for the lemon mint ginger slushy. So the water content, you're just subbing it for a milk that you like. Okay, and I'm doing half the recipe. Okay, ice. Of course, we want it to be slushy-esque. And then 1 banana, 1 ripe banana, so that you can adds a little bit of sweetness as well. You can also add maple syrup to this too, or whatever sweetener choice you have. You could throw a couple of dates in here if you wanted to. Okay, and then the hemp seeds. I've got about 3 tablespoons, and 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds is 10 grams of protein, which is amazing. Good amount. And then we'll just add a little knob of ginger. Not much. You're welcome to take the skin off. There's my timer for the cauliflower. You're welcome to take the skin off. And how you do that, you can do that with a spoon. This is one of my favorite little techniques here. Just peels right off. Put however much or however little you want of the ginger. But again, rich in gingerol, which again is a good component of an anti-cancer diet. Fine fiber and just super flavorful. So I'll plop that in. You can save these skins and make like a nice tea. As long as they're clean and not blemished. That's the only thing you want to be careful of. Okay, and then we'll do a little bit of lemon zest and lemon juice. Actually, do I have a half? I do. I won't use a new one. I'll use this one from before. So again, I'll use my handy dandy microplane, which is somewhere. Where'd you go? Oh, there you go. Hiding on me. Okay, and then we're zesting. So again, we're not wasting anything. Use an extra oomph of flavor, and that's honestly where a lot of the flavor of the lemon comes from. Okay. And then I will use you see some seeds, which we don't want in there. This one's so juicy, you can see all that juice coming out. Of course, feel free to use a reamer or a spoon. I'm just using good old-fashioned woman power. But use whatever you like. And of course, my hands are clean. Of course. First rule of cooking with somebody, make sure your hands are clean. And I mention this every time, but if you don't have the energy to cook for yourself, shortcuts are okay. Using frozen, already pre-made stuff, totally okay. Like finding pomegranate seeds that are already, removed, more than okay. Asking for help, definitely okay. Delegate to family members, friends, neighbors, people who are asking, what can I do? This is what you could do. I would like you to make me this, even if you provide them with the groceries. It's really important to ask for help, especially if you need it. And it's also nice to be cooked for. Okay, throwing in our leafy greens, our mint, which again is going to add so much flavor. These are great too if say you have leftovers, which I probably will because it's just me right now. My kids are at school. I'll make popsicles out of them, or I'll make a chia seed pudding. I think I mentioned that at the last one as well. If you were at the last one, no, you know that already. Great. And sometimes if the stem is not too woody, you see that guy? I'll put some of the stem in, because not only is it rich, in iron, leafy greens, but it's also rich in calcium as well. Again, another electrolyte helping to keep us hydrated. I think that's good for mint. Save you for later.
Quick question about the ginger that you threw in there. Is it necessary to take the peel off, or can you leave that on?
No, you could totally just still blend up well. Yeah, if you put a lot in, you may get a few fibers, but it's nothing that's going to be like offensive or chunky or anything like that. You just want to make sure that anytime you're making a smoothie, make sure that you're fully blending everything. If you have a high power blender, you're not going to have any issues with that. If you don't, then just, as you normally would, make sure that it's completely combined. Again, I'm going to zhuzh this up, so talk amongst yourselves. Nice and loud.
If anyone's looking for it, I did pop in that registration link for today's comedy show in the chat box over there. Like I said, our wonderful guest tonight will be Judy Kroon. And then I do see some other questions in the Q&A, so don't worry, we haven't forgotten about you. I'm just going to leave a few of them for the end as well, okay?
All done. So I love how you were sharing your favorite snacks in the comments. Thank you. Yeah, please do that. If there's any other like tidbits that you find that you've learned, throw them in the chat to share with, or the Q&A, or no, the chat. I guess it would be the chat, right, Gloria? Just to share with members. What's your favorite go-to smoothie? How do you add more energy into your foods? Any sort of tips and tricks will be helpful to your fellow members. Okay, so you can see the smoothie is smooth, or the slushy, and then you can top with a nice, or garnish with some mint. Voila. And of course you gotta taste it. I'm gonna taste it in the other camera. Yum, so good. You're all in. So refreshing. My banana was quite ripe, so it is sweet enough, but you could, if it was not necessarily as ripe, you could add a little bit, as I said, maple syrup or some dates or figs or whatever sweetener you have that you like. So yum, that's so good to have in your back pocket. You could, make a bunch of these, throw them in the fridge, they'll last for a day or two, and or make popsicles or chia pudding out of it. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to clear this, and then I'm going to bring in the stuff for the chocolate. But before I do that, I want to check on our cauliflower. They might be ready. Oh my gosh. Hi. Look at those beauties. Here, I'll put them up close. You can see I'm going to fog the camera though. Right? Doesn't that look nice? Okay, I'm going to plate these before we move on to the chocolate, actually. May as well. What's your favorite cruciferous vegetable, Gloria?
I am a broccoli lover to the day I die. I love broccoli.
Favorite way to eat it? Do you have a favorite way to eat it?
Oh, sorry. You know what? Honestly, I am happy with raw broccoli mixed into mashed potatoes, like blended together. I think that's also great. Anyway.
I love it too. Feel the same way about cauliflower. This is so nice. And like when you roast vegetables, you just get that like that sweetness that comes through, and you're just adding so much flavor, again, without added fat, salt, unhealthy fats, sugar, salt. Okay, beautiful. Okay, and this would go so well with some, you know, couscous or millet or, you know, quinoa, whatever grain you like. It's amazing. Yeah, Donna's just talking about how she adds a tablespoon of hemp seeds, ground flax, and chia to every smoothie I make. Good girl. That's amazing. Yes, yeah. Get those omega-3s into you, but also that added protein is super important as well. Okay, so voila. And now we're going to put our dressing on and our garnish. So if you know me and you've been to many showcases before, I use micro sprouts a lot. You don't have to. You can just use whatever you happen to have in terms of herbs. It is, you know, almost, you know, the nice weather's upon us. It's almost summer, so growing your own herbs is great too. There's this company that I always get my microgreens from. I don't get any money from them, but I love them. Yeah, and it's they're in Hamilton, really close by. So I'm going to use some cilantro sprouts, but first, before I do, I'm going to add a little bit of water to the dressing, just so I can drizzle it a little. So this dressing will keep in the fridge, you know, for 4 to 5 days, maybe even longer. But I would suggest using it for freshness before 4 or 5 days. Here we go. Look at how smooth and beautiful that is. Right? Then I'll turn the oven off. Eating the whole house here. Okay. And then we just drizzle, drizzle, drizzle. Drizzle, drizzle. Beautiful. Now we're going to add the color. Hello. Pomegranate seeds. Hi. Look at those beauties. Hello. Can't wait to eat this. And I wish I could share it with you, but you'll just have to make it. Okay, and then some cilantro. So cilantro leaves would work really well here. Or the sprouts, if you're in. There you have it. It's the second recipe. Check that out. Bam, right? And as I said, you know, you'll want to serve it with a grain as well. Okay, maybe a high protein grain like you want. Okay. Next up, we're going to be making my favorite chocolate recipe. I use this and I apply this in so many different ways. Today I'm going to be making a sauce that we're going to dip fruit in it, but I also use this at Christmas time or whatever holiday you celebrate around the winter time. I'll make like bark out of it. So I'll tell you a little bit about how that works, how I do that. Any questions while I'm getting this prepped up?
Got 2 here. What's your opinion on cashew butter? Nutritional value. They eat almonds, but not a lover of almond butter.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I love cashew butter. It is so decadent and rich and wonderful, nutritionally speaking. You know, good source of protein. I'm all about it. It's a good source of fat as well. Particularly if you're looking to increase your caloric value, they're great for that. Even if you're not, they're still great to include. Yeah, I'm into it hard. It's, yeah, I would highly recommend. Nutritionally speaking, any sort of nuts and seeds, you can't go wrong. Yeah, just making sure, you know, you're trying to find cashew butters and, you know, cashews and nuts and seeds in general that are, you know, unsweetened and unsalted, so that you can be in control of how much sugar and sodium that you have in your diet. That's a great, yeah, I love it. Cashew butter, so good. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Thank you. And then we do have a technical question here. I don't have a blender, but do have a food processor and an immersion blender. Would either work for smoothies, or would the ice be too difficult?
The processor would work. Just make sure it's a newer one. I like killed one of my dad's wife's food processor using ice, and it was really old. It was from the 60s. So just make sure it's a newer one, but the food processor would work. You could also just freeze your bananas and then do it in the food processor. And then, yeah, the hand immersion blender would work as well. Omit the ice and definitely just use frozen bananas. You could use ice, and I mean, if you had ice chips, or if you wanted to make it easier on your hand immersion blender or your food processor, put your ice in, say, like a towel, and then you can just use like the back end of a knife or a hammer and just crush your ice. Or if you have an ice crusher, even better, just to make it a little bit easier on your your blender or your food processor. But yeah, great question. But I would just go with the frozen banana. So just throw your bananas in the freezer, and then that will be sufficient in terms of cooling it. Yeah, good question. Alrighty. Da-da-da. All right. So we are on to my favorite course, which is dessert. So I've got my my pot here over a medium heat, and I'm going to be adding about 2/3 of a cup of coconut oil. I've got almost a half cup of cocoa powder, and I've got 1/4 of a cup of maple syrup, just right here. Okay, and then in terms of spices, you can add whatever you like, or just leave it straight up plain if you want that too. I've got some ginger, I've got some cinnamon, I've got some cayenne, and I've got some nutmeg. Ta-da! Okay, so I'm going to add in my coconut oil. So I will do just this if I'm making that bark that I was talking about. I will do exactly this. It's the same ingredients, it's everything. I'm just not dipping any fruit into it. I'm just putting it on a baking sheet lined with parchment. I'm pouring it on, and then I'm sprinkling on any sort of toppings that I want, and throwing it in the fridge or the freezer. And then it's so amazing. You just break off big hunks of it, wrap it up, you know, in a nice little package, and give it out to all your loved ones. Super easy and very impressive. People are always like, Amy, can you make that chocolate for me? Like, no problem. I usually just make huge batches of it, and then keep it in the freezer during the holiday season. So in case I'm going somewhere, well, not so much these days, but in case you're, you know, doing a porch drop off or a porch visit, or, you know, whatever it is, however you visit safely. Yeah, and you just bring a little chocolate with you. Why not? Or get someone to make it for you.
Just wondering if there's a good substitute for coconut oil, if maybe you don't like the taste.
The coconut oil is what makes it harden. So that's probably your best bet for this particular recipe. But again, if you did want to make this and skip a step and make it a lot easier, you can just find your favorite chocolate bar. And I highly recommend dark chocolate and polyphenols, and use that and just melt that. That works too. And then do the exact same thing: baking sheet, parchment paper, pour it on, sprinkle all your favorite toppings. I usually do like pistachios, coconut flakes, and cranberries or cherries. So it's like green, red, and white, or whatever, whatever you want to do. But yeah, for this particular recipe, coconut oil is the best because it is solid at room temperature. But there's lots of other chocolate recipes out there that don't use coconut oil. Okay, and I'm gonna whisk in the cocoa powder. And then the various spices. And you just want to heat it up until the spices are fragrant. The recipe, again, has specific measurements, but honestly, when it comes to this sort of stuff, you can just put it in paste. I put in a little extra cinnamon. And then some cayenne, which you can omit. But it does add a little something. And then a pinch of nutmeg. Okay, and then we will whisk that up. So again, spices and herbs are also a great component of an anti-cancer diet. They're really high in antioxidants. There's a variety of different ones. I talked about ginger having gingerol. Turmeric has curcumin. You know, there's all sorts of benefits to dried herbs and spices. Get those into you too. Okay, and then I'm going to whisk in the maple syrup. We'll just bring that to a simmer. We want it to thicken a little bit so that it coats the strawberries. Clean up as we go. Always good to do that. All right, so this is a great recipe to use with seasonal fruits. It's just, you know, it's good for all seasons. Because you can just whatever fruit is in season, right? It's good with everything. Bananas, pineapple, I mean, those we don't necessarily grow locally, but whatever you like, whatever you can eat, whatever, you know, however to get that food into you, get it into you. Okay. And while that's going, I've got the toppings that we're going to roll the strawberries in or sprinkle on them after. So I've got cocoa nibs, I've got some walnuts here, and then I've got some shelled pistachios. I'll take the shells off now. So these are a yummy snack too, if you're into pistachios. And these ones are salted, so adds a little extra flavor. I do have some sea salt that I will sprinkle on them as well. You don't have to, but that's something that's just kind of fun. You know, make it your own. But again, we're getting good healthy fats in us. We're getting polyphenols in us. Okay. I'm noticing the sauce is just a little bit thin. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more cocoa powder. I'll show you the consistency so you know what I'm talking about. Oh, it's thickening up a little bit. It does need just a little bit more though. You could add some vanilla in here too. Vanilla and sea salt. Oh my gosh, my favorite. So that's good to go. I will chop these nuts. Again, if you're not into nuts, pumpkin seeds would be really nice here as well. Just any sort of healthy fats. You want to get those MUFAs and PUFAs into you, the monounsaturated fatty acids and the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So the polyunsaturated fatty acids you find in things like hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, you know, walnuts, and the MUFAs you find in pretty much any other plant-based fat. And Okay, so this is a nice fun activity to do with friends too, if you're able to, because then you can just, you know, make your own for your own toppings, whatever you want to put on it, you're able to. Okay. So I'll get my little dunking station going here. So these, I believe, are California strawberries, but strawberry season is coming soon. It's coming soon, so I'm getting you ready for it. So all we do, you can see how the how it's nice and thick now. And you would want to let it cool a little bit more, but and just kind of right. And then you can sprinkle it on, you can roll it on, whatever you want to do. That one on the plate. Bam. Now maybe I'll do a smaller one. And I like to leave the stems on. They add a pop of color. And I don't know if you know this, but the stems are edible. So you can just eat them. And guess what? They're leafy green too. You don't need to take them off. And sometimes I find when you're taking them off, you're just taking off a lot more of the strawberry. And so you're missing out on that strawberry action. Okay, there's number 2. Let's find another one. These ones are big. These babies are big. Okay, we'll do this one. And it's easier to dunk too. You can see when you're holding on to this stuff. I like to leave a little bit of the strawberry again, so you get that pop of color. And that's for the final one. Maybe I'll just do one with sea salt. Why not? I'm in charge. So I'll do a little pinch of sea salt. Trying to avoid dripping. Be good too if you were doing these ahead of time to get a baking sheet lined with parchment, and then doing all this, and then it doesn't matter if you make a mess on the parchment, and then you just pop it in the fridge and you've got them ready to ready to go ahead of time if you're making this say for friends or family. Let's just sea salt one. Bam. Those guys out. Hi. Right? Okay, cool. That's it. You can have a lot of fun. I mean, there's so many different toppings you can put on there. Those are just some of my favorites and my ideas. Okay, so we've got our strawberries. We have our roasted cauliflower, tahini, cilantro, and pomegranates. And we have our lemon mint ginger kind of slushy smoothie with extra added energy rich ingredients. So pretty easy, pretty straightforward. You can make a lot of these in advance, and then just, as the week goes, if you're busy or if you're not feeling like cooking that particular day, you can have it, on hand and ready to go. But that's it. So I just want to say a big fat thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedules for yourself. I hope these recipes were easy to follow and that the information I provided you was helpful. Again, stay tuned to the handout and check out Gilda's website for more resources. But yeah, thank you so much. Enjoy the weather. I hope you get outside or sit by a window at the very least. It's much better weather these days. Take care.
Thank you so much, Amy. Thanks everyone for showing up. Bye.